I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of community prayer. My name is Edith Churchman. I am 72 years old, and I'm a funeral director, funeral service professional here in Newark, New Jersey. For 47 years, I've been involved in funeral service. I grew up in the house over the funeral home, never intended to go into funeral service. After I was just about to graduate from college, and I had a conversation with my brother, and I was like, gee, what's Dad going to do with the funeral home? And I said, I think I'm going to go to mortuary school. I think I want to get into this. And so that's when I made my decision, was about in 1971 or so. Not only a family business, but a family heritage. I'm the fourth generation in my family to be in funeral service, and my family has been involved in funeral service for for 124 years. So my great-grandfather started the funeral home in 1899 in Orange, New Jersey. I had a background in speech and theater arts, a bachelor's degree in speech and theater arts, but I kind of thought I wanted to be a speech pathologist, but then after I got involved in that, I knew that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. Then I went on to get my master's degree in rhetoric and public address, because I was interested in aspects of rhetoric, why people say what they do, and how the audience perceives what they say. And then after that, I went to mortuary school, and I came home. I did my apprenticeship with my father, and I worked at the funeral home for about 6 or 7 years. And then I decided I was going to go get a doctorate. And so my doctorate is in interpersonal and public communications. I'm a member of St. James AME, and I've been a member of St. James for over 30 years, probably maybe getting close to 40 years now that I've been a member here. My grandfather was AME. I did not grow up in the AME church. I grew up as an Episcopalian. And I left the Episcopal church some years ago, and I ended up at St. James. And at the time I came to St. James, Reverend Owens, Reverend D.M. Owens was the pastor here at St. James. And I was just drawn to the form of worship, and I've just been here ever since. And if you ever go inside and take a look at, there's a tablet inside the door here that talks about the trustees at the time that St. James bought this building. And one of the trustees at the time was actually a funeral director in Newark. And I didn't realize that until I went back and I was looking through some paperwork, and I found his funeral program, and I matched it up with the plaque and said, oh gee whiz. So I guess that from a funeral aspect, kind of tied to St. James as well. I'm a woman of great faith. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of community prayer. I enjoy coming to church. And as I was growing up as a child, it was not an option on Sundays. Everyone got up, everybody got dressed, and everybody went out the house. And growing up, I belonged to St. Philip's Episcopal Church. And St. Philip's was down King Boulevard, traveling north, where Essex County College is. And just kind of an interesting story that the land for that church was donated by white Episcopalians for black Episcopalians. And it was set up so that black Episcopalians, as long as they had a church there, could keep that land. And it was a very big plot of land, so not only was there a church building, but we also had a church school building that was 2 stories, that was kind of a recreation center, and where we went for Sunday school, and where different other events were held in the church. And very, I want to say mysteriously, there was a fire in the church, and the congregation was never able to rebuild. Although we did worship there for some years in the church school building, and eventually we merged with Trinity Cathedral on Broad Street in Newark, which at that time was an all-white congregation. And little by little by little, the white congregants left, making that into an African American church. And that church is kind of an interesting church. It has a very long history in the city of Newark, and it's built with a balcony and also built with very deep windowsills so that enslaved persons who were going to church with the families that owned them would either sit in the balcony or sit in those windowsills. I think the feeling that's deep inside of me, that everything is going to be all right, everything is going to be okay, and that even though we're traveling through a period of darkness, maybe we're traveling through a period of disarray in our lives, I believe that on the other side things will be better. And I don't think we necessarily have to wait until we get to heaven for things to be better. I believe that things can be better right here on earth. And I think that as a person involved in funeral service, you know you have a job to do, and your job is to bury the dead. And your job is to get the family of that deceased person to where they need to go. And you do that in a way that you're at work. So I'm not grieving with every family, because then I wouldn't be able to work effectively. But also, I think with the death of my beloved Aunt Alethea and with the death of my parents, that put me more in my walk of faith. And also through some family drama that I've been through. But you just have to keep going. The challenge, one of the immediate challenges is, for me, is to bring information to families before the time of death, so that when the death occurs, you're not standing around saying, oh my God, what am I going to do? That you've kind of thought about what you're going to do, that you have some ideas about what you want to do. And having those thoughts, having those ideas, to me, involves being prepared, becoming prepared. So knowing what to expect if your loved one's going to go on Medicaid, knowing what to expect if your loved one's going on hospice, knowing what to expect in terms of family drama. What happens if part of the family wants a cremation but the other part wants a burial? What happens if you want someone to be buried at a certain cemetery but you don't have the money? So I become kind of the idea person, the encourager, the person that has to tell the family, look, no matter what your decision is, whether it's a direct cremation or whether it's a grand and glorious funeral with a horse and carriage and, you know, bagpipers at the cemetery, you're still going to get my same service. You're still going to get my same love, my same compassion at this time. So that for me is the challenge. And I think also the challenge is burying people who are younger than my children, burying people that have died violently, and just trying to prop that family up and make that family go, and to take unrealistic expectations and make them into realistic expectations. The Elders Council is a grand gathering of people, seasoned people, I'll use that term, that can come together to share ideas about how NJPAC should be moved forward. And can I mention to you also, or I will mention to you also, that NJPAC was built on a cemetery. So my family was involved. My father was involved in doing some exhumations from that cemetery, from gathering what remained of those persons to bury them at Fairmont Cemetery under the Robert Treat statue. So I want to bring that part of history to the table. I also want NJPAC to be reflective of the community in which it finds itself. And I think that NJPAC has done an excellent job of doing that. So that the elders are there, I believe, to guide and to direct, also to show younger people that may be involved in programming at NJPAC that this can be you in another 40 years, in another 50 years. So we're on a continuum. So with age, hopefully comes wisdom. So being an elder means that you should be wise, that you should be knowledgeable about the arts. I was very fortunate. I'm a product of the Newark Public School System, and I'm really pleased about that. Graduate of Arts High School. So for me, being involved with NJPAC has been a continuum of my arts experience. I started taking piano lessons when I was a very young girl. I had the good fortune to take piano and organ lessons from the Coppock family. And the Coppocks were longtime members of St. James AME Church. And Mrs. Coppock was not just giving lessons, but she was preparing us. So one of the things that she did, she would take us every year to the Scott Mansion, and there was an auditorium behind the Scott Mansion, and we would have a recital every year. And so I think that, and I was maybe 8 or 10 years old, and my brother a couple years behind me, and those were the things that gave us presence, that made us able to stand up in front of an audience, to be able to accept those claps and accept that praise. I have a friend, a dear friend, who was the first person I knew that ever got a doctorate, and she pointed out to me once that children that go to church do very well in school because they're used to hand signals and they're used to commands coming from the front. And so Mrs. Coppock gave us that. I would say to them, dream big. Think about where you're going in this life. I've heard the statement that youth is wasted on the young. And I think that that's so true, because when you're young, I don't think you're really thinking about being 70 years old. When you're young, you're interested in having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You're not interested in who the parents of your children are going to be. You're not really thinking towards having grandchildren. So think big, think globally. When we were talking about NJPAC before, I also want to mention that not only, I think that Mr. Schreiber is doing such a great job at NJPAC, but not only with NJPAC, but also in bringing Symphony Hall in. And when I was a very little girl, my mom used to take me to Symphony Hall a lot. And we used to go up into the balcony, and I kind of promised myself then, when I grow up and I come to Symphony Hall, I'm not climbing these steps, I'm not sitting in the balcony, I'm going to sit in the orchestra. And so I think in so many ways we can be captains of our own destiny. I remember, you know, I think everybody probably reads the story of Anne Frank, and thinking to myself, I want to go there. I want to see where Anne Frank hid. And when I was able to do that one day, realizing that was a part of a dream that I manifested, that I was able to see that. And so I think that it's so important for people of all ages not to limit ourselves to the here and now, but think about the things. Don't say, gee, you know, when I turn 50, I'm going to travel to South Africa. When I have my 70th birthday, I'm going to go. I always wanted to go to Australia. I'm going to go then. Take the opportunity, seize the moment. Carpe diem. Let's just do it now. I think I always wanted to be a mother, but having children and actually holding them in my hands for the first time ever, just to look in their eyes, that was a great surprise. I always wanted to have grandchildren, and for them to know who I am and for me to be able to impact their lives, that's a great surprise. Another thing that was surprising for me was when things unfolded that I could travel to South Africa. Always wanted to go to the continent, and I just never could figure out a way or a means, and so to be able to step off that plane and say, I'm here, that was so wonderful. That's been a great life surprise. Yeah, I am an introverted extrovert. So I know that I have to meet people. I don't mind meeting people. I don't mind talking to people, but I also enjoy my own company very, very much. One of the things that brings me a lot of joy now is in maybe the past 10 or 12 years, I started quilting. And I have just really enjoyed that quilting community. I have enjoyed being able to sit down with a piece of fabric, look at it and say, wow, this looks like this and this looks like that, cut it up, put it together and make something different. That brings me a lot of joy. And being able to get on a plane and go someplace and get off the plane, just imagine that you can be on a plane for 12 hours and get off and be all the way around the world, and to walk into a new airport for the first time and just smell that airport and smell that country. That brings me so much joy. And I hope that when I travel, I look and I say, wow, is there anybody on the plane older than me? And I love to meet people that are in their 80s that are still traveling, still getting around on their own. And so, yeah, that brings me a lot of joy. Going to new places, having new experiences, meeting new people. It's marvelous.